Monitor News Radio.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a little frightening. Frightening in the sense that it happened in a small town of West Pittston, Pennsylvania.
This was a duplex house, as you'll see. It's in a coal mining area. And they felt, well, maybe something was happening underneath because of the old mine shafts.
Tonight on Monitor News Radio. But you're sure you didn't dream them?
I know, I didn't dream them.
I feel like there's this urge to be like so declarative all the time about like, here's what I think and here's what you should think, you know? And I don't feel that way. I always feel like, how does anyone know what they think? Like it's very complicated, our world.
Jack at first didn't believe all these things until he heard the voices himself. He's seen his wife being dragged out of bed. Then there's the night when both of them are lying in bed, and both of them rise up into the air, up as high as the ceiling.
Look, just like the Lutz family
Just
in
like the Lutzes.
Amityville, Long Island, Tony.
And they're dropped onto the bed.
You didn't find anything in the morning? What? Find anything? Yeah, you know, like, you find any evidence? Tonight we will study the story of the Smurl family, specifically the investigation of Ed and Lorraine Warren, as well as the specifics of the exorcism performed by Father McKenna of the Dominican Order. Jack Smurl was a Navy man who served in World War II. Janet, his wife, was a stay-at-home mom. They would have 4 daughters, Dawn, Heather, and the twins, Shannon and Karen. Jack's parents, John and Mary Smurl, lived next door in the duplex and would be affected by the haunting as well. Though they were a happy family, troubles quickly arose in the Chase Street home. Objects that went missing could be blamed on forgetfulness, but Jack's wife was soon terrified out of her mind by walking shadows that appeared to both Janet and her mother-in-law. Jack remained doubtful of everything until he saw the spirits for himself. What follows is a recording of one of the members of the investigative team. His voice has been changed.
This was Jack Smurl's first encounter with the supernatural. At this point, he had still not been convinced until he saw 2 women at the foot of his bed. They're wearing very old clothing, and Jack couldn't move. He was experiencing sleep paralysis, as if there was a huge weight on his chest. He couldn't move at all. He just stared at these 2 women and described how they were glowing like a black and white TV set, almost. That was how he described it.
The Smurls weren't the only family to be affected by their haunting. This is an actual interview with Maureen Cowles, a neighbor of the Smurls who had her own experiences. So you've been a good friend of the Smurls.
Very good. They're wonderful people.
Would you tell us how you became involved in the haunting?
It was because I telephoned Janet over the weekend.
Could you explain that?
Well, they went camping, which I hadn't known about. So I just thought I kept calling to see if she wanted to get together.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, they went camping, which I didn't know about, so I just kept calling to see if she wanted to get together.
Could you elaborate on what happened then?
This little girl answered.
Little girl?
Yes, she sounded as if she was probably 7 or 8, and then she'd laugh.
Laugh?
That was the eeriest part, her laugh. She'd say, "They don't live here anymore." Then she'd hang up. I called 6 or 7 times that weekend. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. But the little girl would always answer. I even called the operator to verify the number.
And you told Janet about this?
Sure, right away. She got as scared as I was. With everything her family is going through, they didn't need some new kind of trouble like this.
Though the family hoped their camping trip would take their minds off their troubles, the demonic influence in the Smurl home only grew more powerful. The tipping point came. This was the occasion where Jack was sexually assaulted in his own home. The following is Jack's interview about this incident.
Jack, would you describe what happened on the night of June 21st?
The surprising thing was that the house had been pretty peaceful for 2 or 3 days. We watched a movie on TV, got the girls to bed, had some lemonade, and went upstairs to bed.
4 bids. The actual retail price is...
How did you first know something was wrong?
The way I came awake, I guess.
There was something different about it?
Yeah, it was like I'd been, I don't know, thrown off a cliff or something, you know? Some kind of violent action woke me up.
Can you describe what you saw?
At first, I didn't see anything at all. I just felt like this tremendous sort of panic. I wasn't sure if I was having a nightmare or not.
What convinced you that you weren't having nightmares?
Her scales.
Her scales? You mean serpent, snake-like scales?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
You said she. Those scales were on a woman?
Yes.
How would you describe her?
To be honest, I hate to think about it. Her skin was paper white, but it was covered in some places with the scaly surface I mentioned, and in other places with open sores, the kind you'd think a leopard would have or something.
How old was she?
I would estimate 65 or 70, I can't be sure.
What else did you first notice?
She had long, white, scraggly hair, and her eyes were all red, and inside her mouth and her gums were all green. Some of her teeth were missing, but those that she had were long.
What about her body?
That was the weird thing. Her body itself was firm, you know, like a younger woman.
Jack's co-worker, Roberta, testified that Jack was a reasonable, level-headed man as you would expect, not at all given to flights of fancy or wild imaginings. The case would draw the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren, famed exorcists and students of demonology who have been featured in movies such as The Conjuring, The Haunting in Connecticut, Annabelle, and others.
By early February, the Smurls were in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, pretty much every day. Charles Gravatas and Tony Claire Cusio, these were associates of the Warrens that they sent to check things out before Ed and Lorraine themselves showed up, kind of to weed out the fakers. Charles Gravatas was a practical nurse from Bridgeport, and Tony Claire Cusio was a student of demonology from West Virginia.
The following is a reenactment of Tony's questioning of the Smurl family.
Now, I want to tell you something right up front. I'm gonna start off with the assumption that you're not telling us the truth.
What?
You're gonna have to prove to me that your house has been infested.
But why?
Yeah, because many people do things like this to get attention for themselves or because they want to play some kind of practical joke.
But after all we've been through...
Hey, I've been told that you've been through all these things, but I don't know that for a fact. Now, wait just a minute. Hey, put yourself in my place, Jack. I'm a trained psychic investigator. If I just automatically accepted everybody's word for things, would I really be doing my job?
The Warren said you'd be asking some tough questions. They weren't kidding. We're not sure when it started exactly. I guess we'd have to date it to be official. About the time that both Mary and I saw the black form.
You didn't find anything in the morning? What? Find anything? Yeah, you know, like, you find any evidence? Like what? You know, like a button, a strand of oddly colored hair, maybe? No. But you're sure you didn't dream them?
I know I didn't dream them. They were too real. Everything about it was real.
Charlie and Tony set up tape recorders in the upstairs hallway, specifically around doorways used by the demons to enter the apartments. Charlie reviewed the events that happened to the Smurls, all the situations that they had had. He was questioning Jack about the two women who appeared at the foot of his bed when they heard a terrifying knocking. Tony said he had never had this experience before, to this degree. Everyone froze. Charlie ran upstairs to check if the tapes were recording. Charlie believed that this recording proved indisputably that the Smurls were haunted.
By then, I didn't have any doubt that what we were dealing with was a demon. It was a demonic infestation. We spent the entire night listening to, recording, and categorizing a variety of experiences associated with the supernatural. By morning, we were exhausted. Janet made us a breakfast of eggs and sausage, toast. Then we went back to Connecticut to talk to the Warrens.
After Charlie and Tony got word to the Warrens, the demonologists rushed to Pittston to make a full evaluation for themselves. Ed Warren had the idea to perform a religious provocation accompanied by Jack, which is different from an exorcism.
What religious provocation is basically baiting, or we like to call it chumming the waters. It's not summoning a demon force, it's not inviting a demonic force into your home like you would with Ouija board. It's more like calling out the name of Christ in order to bring the demon to the fore and banish it. This was one of Jack's most frightening experiences. Temperature drops, demons slashing bed sheets and tearing apart the home. Sensory overload. Jack described it as smelling salts, having that strong astringent chemical smell that just overloads your senses. He had the demon try to strangle him, felt the demon's fingers around his throat that when the demon is actually choking you and the only thing protecting you is your faith and nothing else.
Lorraine's evaluation of the Smurl home brought her all the way back to her investigation at the famous Amityville house. She felt a hot rag on her face. Temperature changes. While investigating the bedroom, Lorraine Warren felt thumbs pressing into her throat. As the demonic force tried to choke her, she collapsed onto the bed, gagging and choking for life. Only by visualizing the light of Jesus was Lorraine able to stop the force from choking the life out of her. Her assistant, Roger Coyle, rushed to her side to try and provide whatever help he could. Lorraine said that she had never seen anything like this in 40 years of investigations. The assessment was not good. The Warrens declared that there were at least 4 demons possessing their home.
Lorraine Warren continued listing the catalog of ghost activity they had encountered, paying special attention to the dark shape that several family members had seen. Lorraine stated that this shape was the manifestation of the devil that was driving them mad. The family's report conveyed it was often hunched over, black figure always seeming to appear from nowhere and disappear just as fast. It frequently made items disappear as well to confuse the family and turn them against each other. As Lorraine discussed these things, the bus started to pull up.
At this point, the Smurls wanted to shield their children from knowing how serious their situation was. So as the girls arrived home from school, Lorraine tabled the discussion. Janet expressed frustrations obtaining help from a church she had been a member of her entire life. Ed and Lorraine offered to help, getting a priest from outside the diocese to perform the exorcism.
Ed promised to find a priest to help. He was a 59-year-old priest. He left the Catholic Church after the Second Vatican Council. This was a decision not that long ago that masses should be said in English rather than Latin. That's sort of what allowed him to work with the Warrens, because he was sort of already an outcast from the Vatican.
When Father McKenna arrived, he declined any food offered by the Smurls and went upstairs to put on his clothes for the ceremony. The priest put on his vestments, a white wool habit of the Dominican order, a 15-decade rosary which he hung off his belt, an ankle-length tunic, a purple silk stole hung over his shoulders, symbolizing penance and humility.
The Warrens attested that all exorcisms are not successful if the families have not given themselves completely, or if the demons are simply too powerful. This man would perform what he called the Ritual Romanum. He had done over 50 exorcisms. He always fasted for 3 days. John and Mary Smurl shared their anxiety over the impending exorcism. The whole family was opening cupboards, trying to open any place where the spirit, could be hiding in any corner of the home. Together with the priest, they turned the card table into a sort of altar.
I ask you to pray for the salvation of your souls and to drive the demons out. I also ask you not to offer me anything of monetary value, as this could hamper the exorcism.
In a large leather doctor's bag, the priest brought with him altar candles, cruets for water, cruets for wine, missal, and a missal stand, small bells, a golden chalice, holy water, a crucifix, and a relic from a saint. The priest called on the demons to identify themselves. He took the holy water and held it to his breast, before taking the crucifix and the relic of the saint, holding them to his forehead. He repeated the words, Dominus vobiscum, the Lord be with you, applying holy water in each room and saying the prayers of the exorcism. Behold the cross of the Lord, flee adverse enemies. Seize the dragon, the ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and cast him bound into the abyss, that he may no more seduce the nation. Dominus vobiscum, Lord be with you, Ritual Romanum. The family heard tantrums upstairs. The priest simply said the Mass louder, raising the goblet to celebrate the Son of Man and God. Potted plants and other objects started vibrating. As the Mass went on, the objects ceased their shaking, and the scent of roses could be smelled throughout the home.
The problems didn't end after the latest exorcism. As hopeful as we were that things would be solved at this point, we continued hearing the sinister knocking, and the Smurls in private started to discuss whether they should go completely public with their situation, just anything to try and find someone who could help them. The parents' mattress rose up from the bed frame, levitating them as they were asleep. There were sensations of earthquakes felt throughout the house. On Friday of the same week, the oak hutch opens up in the kitchen, all the cupboards shoot open, and cups and saucers start flying across the room.
When a later repeat exorcism by Father McKenna failed, the Smurls finally decided to leave their West Pittston home and move to nearby Wilkes-Barre. Curiously, there were no more incidents for future residents of the Chase Street home. Though the Smurls were continued to be plagued by supernatural forces, they never experienced the assault and sheer violence that occurred to them at their first home. There are many theories that have emerged about why the Smurls might have faked the haunting if it wasn't real. Like much of northeastern Pennsylvania, West Pittston is a coal mining area, and there are theories that gas from the mines might have affected the Smurls and caused them to have their delusions. Another theory is that one member of the family, specifically Jack or Janet, may have simply been ill and may have swept up the rest of the family in delusions. The Smurls never achieved any particular level of fame or wealth because of their story. Though there were book deals and movies made, the Smurls have all gone on to live fairly ordinary, middle-class lives. One daughter, Karen Smurl, went on to become very involved in the paranormal community, possibly as a way of dealing with the stress of her life, being affected by demons at such a young age. One thing is certain, Ed and Lorraine Warren were correct. The case was unusual in that it was a close, very happy family that was affected by this, which is not usually the case. And that raises the question, if this could happen to a safe, ordinary family who was just as happy as anyone else, could it happen to you or me? Voice acting performed by Paige Pliss and Max Strebro. Music for this episode was provided by Angiovia. That's Angiovia. Check out Angiovia on SoundCloud and YouTube.